Introduction. Destiny Rewritten. There comes a moment in life when everything shifts, when the truth, no matter how painful, can no longer be ignored, when you realize you were never loved, never valued, just used. For years I gave, I sacrificed, I poured my heart and soul into a family that saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM. And when I finally saw the truth, I made a choice. This is not just a story. This is a reckoning. Welcome to Destiny Rewritten, where betrayal meets justice, where pain. In today's episode, I'll take you through a journey of deception, control, and the moment I decided to take back what was mine. And trust me, you don't want to miss a second of it. Watch till the very end because every detail matters. Every twist, every revelation. It all leads to one final, life-changing decision. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Destiny Rewritten and hit the notification bell. If you've ever felt used, betrayed, or underestimated, this one's for you. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to walk away from someone who never deserved you in the first place. Now, let's begin. The moment I realized I was nothing but their ATM, I spent my entire life chasing something that never existed. Approval, love, recognition. But no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I sacrificed, I was never enough. I see that now. I should have seen it years ago. The daughter who was never enough. Growing up, I thought love was something you had to earn. If I got perfect grades, maybe my father would smile at me instead of sighing in disappointment. If I won competitions, maybe my mother would finally say, "I'm proud of you." If I worked hard, got promoted, made money, maybe they would finally see me as worthy. But nothing was ever good enough. An A should have been an A+. A scholarship? So what? Your cousin got into a better school. Buying your own house? What a waste of money. Every achievement was dismissed. Every struggle was mocked. And then there was Liam, my younger brother, the golden child. He never worked for anything, yet he was everything in my parents' eyes. If he failed, it was someone else's fault. If I had to earn Eve. Even when I started making real money, they acted like it was a fluke, a joke. Oh, Emma's working late again. What's the point? You're going to end up alone. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with money, you'd find a husband. You think you're successful? Please. Your boss probably just feels sorry for you. I lag. But God. Because deep down, I still believed that if I just tried harder, one day they'd respect me. One day they'd see me as more than just a paycheck. I was so stupid. The day I saved them, and they never knew. The call cam. My mother's voice was tight with panic. "Emma, the house. We're going to lose the house." I froze. "What? How? I thought—" "Your father, he took out some loans. He was sure he'd pay them off, but—" I could hear my father in the background, muttering angrily. "A real man doesn't beg." I almost low. He had spent his whole life telling me to, obsessed with money. And drowning and asking, they never even said please. Just, "You have money, don't you? You're doing well. You can take care of it." I should have walked away. But I told myself they were my parents. That maybe, finally, if I did this for them, they'd see me differently. So I bought the house, not with a loan, not with a gift. I bought it outright through my company, EC Holdings. I negotiated with the bank and took full ownership, but I never told them. Instead, I let them believe they were still paying off the mortgage. Every month they sent their checks, but they weren't paying the bank. They were paying me. I never expected gratitude, but I also never expected this. For 6 years, I carried that secret. I covered the majority of the payments myself, making sure they never noticed. I never asked for thanks. I never even hinted at the truth. And then, one phone call shattered everything. The call that changed everything. I was at work, drowning in spreadsheets, when my phone buzzed. "Dad." I hesitated. Calls from him were rare, and when they did happen, they usually had one purpose. Money. I sighed and answered, "Hello?" Silence. Then rustling. a chair scraping against the floor. Then, his voice. She's a failure, a mistake. She was never supposed to happen. The air in my lungs froze. At first, I thought I misheard. Then came my mother's voice. Softer, but just as sharp. Greg, come on. She's doing fine. She pays the mortgage, doesn't she? A scoff. That's the least she can do after everything we've done for her. You think I'm proud of her? She's nothing. She'll never be one of us. She thinks she's successful? Please, she's pathetic. Just a walking ATM. We should have had another son. I couldn't breathe. My fingers tightened around my phone, my vision blurring. They had no idea I was listening. No idea that the ATM they were talking about had been the one keeping a roof over their heads all these years. No idea that I owned them, that I could take everything away with a single click. My hands were shaking, my heart pounded in my chest. I should have been crying. I should have felt hurt, but all I felt was cold, empty, and then rage. The final betrayal. That night, as I lay in bed, their words looped in my head. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. The next morning, my Uncle Ray called me. Emma, I need to tell you something. It's worse than you think. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Your father's been digging into your finances. My blood ran cold. He's convinced you're hiding money from them, and he's planning to get it by force. What? I overheard him. He said if you don't start giving them more money, they'll find a way to force your hand. Force my hand? How? Uncle Ray hesitated. He mentioned calling your employer, trying to discredit you, maybe even contacting the IRS to get you audited. A sharp pang of disbelief shot through me. You're lying. I wish I was. My own parents, my own family. Not only did they think I was worthless, they were actively planning to destroy me if I didn't keep paying. I sat there, frozen, until finally I laughed, cold, empty. Because now I understood. They didn't just want my money. They wanted control. And they would do anything to get it. But they made one mistake. They thought I was weak. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Taking back what's mine. That night, I opened my laptop. I clicked on the folder labeled EC Holdings, Property Number 12. Inside, every mortgage document, every payment schedule, every legal clause stared back at me. Then, my eyes landed on one key detail. The purchase option clause. If they missed a single payment, I could take everything. And the deadline? Tomorrow. I hovered over the button. My heart was steady, my breathing calm. And then I clicked. Proceed. They wanted to take everything from me? Fine. But first, let's see what happens when I take everything from them. To be continued. The night. Everything changed. I knew the text was coming before my phone even buzzed. Mom, sweetheart, come over for dinner. We miss you. I stared at the message, my lips curling into a smirk. They missed me? Please. I knew exactly what this was about. For the past 3 days, I had been waiting, watching the time tick down. I had checked my email that morning, confirmation from the legal team. The house was officially mine. They hadn't paid. They thought they were still dealing with the same desperate, eager-to-please daughter they had manipulated for years. They had no idea. I typed back, quick and effortless. Me, of course, looking forward to it. A lie, but necessary. Let the game begin. Home, but not home anymore. The drive to their house felt surreal. It was a place I had grown up in, a place I had once thought of as safe. Now? It was nothing more than a property under my company's name. I pulled into the driveway, my hands steady on the wheel. The house stood tall, just as it always had, but this time it felt different. I owned this place now. I took a slow breath before stepping out of the car. The front door swung open before I even knocked. My mother's face was stretched into a bright, welcoming smile, too bright, too welcoming. Emma, sweetheart, come in. The scent of roasted chicken and garlic filled the air, an attempt to soften me up. I smiled, stepping inside, keeping my face neutral. "It's good to see you, Mom." A lie. The dining table was already set, the lights dimmed just enough to create a warm, intimate atmosphere. My father was seated at the head of the table, arms crossed, expression unreadable. And then there was Liam, my younger brother. He sat lazily in his chair, smirking, as if he knew something I didn't. I took my seat. The chair felt colder than usual. Tension lay thick in the air. I picked up my fork, poised. Let them speak first. They always did. The small favor. Mom was the first to break the silence, her voice sweet, calculated. "Family is so important," she said, reaching for my hand across the table. "We need to support each other." I resisted the urge to pull away. "Of course," I said smoothly. She smiled, her eyes flickering toward my father. And there it was. "We've been struggling a little," Dad said, his voice thick with forced concern. "Just a small favor, only an extra $3,000 a month." I let my fork rest gently on my plate. I tilted my head, curiosity laced in my voice. "That's interesting." My father's brow furrowed. "What is?" I folded my hands in my lap, looking directly at him. "You've already been living off me for years. You just didn't know it." Silence. Then, realization. The room went dead quiet. My mother's fake smile faltered, the edges twitching. My father's jaw clenched. Liam, for once, looked genuinely confused. "Emma," my mother said carefully, "what are you talking about?" I let the silence stretch, let them squirm. Then I leaned back, my voice cold and calm. "The house?" I said, flicking a glance around the dining room. "It's mine. It's been mine. And 3 days ago, you officially defaulted." My father gripped the edge of the table. "That's not possible," he snapped. "We've been making payments." "To me," I cut in, tilting my head. "Not the bank. Me." I watched understanding dawn on their faces, years of false security crumbling in a matter of seconds. It was beautiful. The outburst. My father slammed his fist against the table, his face turning red. "You wouldn't dare." I met his glare without flinching. "Try me." Liam let out a low whistle. "So, let me get this straight," he said, his voice laced with amusement. "You mean to tell me we've been paying rent to our own failure of a sister?" He laughed. I smiled. "That's right." His laughter stopped. Dad was still fuming, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. Mom's eyes were wide, panicked. "Emma, sweetheart, you don't understand. We thought—" "No," I said, my voice sharp. "You don't understand. I saved you, I gave you a home, and instead of being grateful, you mocked me, called me pathetic, a mistake." My father sneered. "We raised you. You owe us." Ah, there it was. I let out a soft laugh, shaking my head. "I don't owe you anything," I said. His face twisted in fury. "You ungrateful little—" I stood up. "You have 30 days, I said. "Pay rent or leave." Mom gasped. "You can't do this, we're family." I stared down at her. "Funny," I murmured. "You only remember that when you need money." She let go. I turned to leave. Then Liam's voice, low, sharp. "You'll regret this." I glanced over my shoulder, smirking. "No," I said. "I won't. The aftermath." I didn't check my phone that night. I already knew what would be waiting for me. Calls, texts, empty threats. And I was right. By morning, my inbox was flooded. "Mom, Emma, please, let's talk. We didn't mean what we said." "Dad, you think you're so smart? You'll regret this." "Liam, you're just a bitter loser. We'll find a way to take the house back. Watch." I read them all. Then I blocked their numbers. I wasn't playing their game anymore. For years, I had been the daughter who bent over backward to please them. Not anymore. I had given them everything, and now I was taking it back. They wanted to see what life was like without me? Let's see who breaks first. The day karma finally came for them. They thought they could stop me. They thought they could manipulate, threaten, and destroy me the way they always had. But they had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. The fallout begins. The night after I left their house, I didn't bother checking my phone. I already knew what would be waiting for me, voicemails dripping with anger, fake apologies, and manipulative pleas. And I was right. By morning, my inbox was flooded. Mom, Emma, please, let's talk. We didn't mean what we said. Dad, you think you're so smart? You'll regret this. Liam, you're just a bitter loser. We'll find a way to take the house back. Watch. I read every single one. Then I blocked them all. No more. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking for their approval. I wasn't waiting for a hint of validation, a scrap of acknowledgement. I was done, and that terrified them, because they weren't done with me. Not yet. The lawyers, the lies, and the desperation. The first attempt was a lawyer's letter, a pathetic, flimsy attempt to contest the ownership of the house. It was laughable. They had no legal standing. They had signed the mortgage agreement, defaulted on payments, and had no claim to the property whatsoever. I forwarded the letter to my lawyer, Mark, who called me 2 hours later. Emma, I don't even have to fight this. It's a joke. They have no case. I smirked. Of course they didn't. But I knew they wouldn't stop there. The next move was emotional manipulation. My mother tried first. She sent me an email. Long, dramatic, Dren, sweetheart. We're your parents. We made mistakes, but that doesn't mean you can just throw us away. Family is forever. You'll regret this when we're gone. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I hit delete, because for the first time, I realized something. I wasn't the one throwing them away. They had done that to me years ago. The dirty play, trying to ruin my career. And then came the real betrayal. My father, realizing that legal action and guilt-tripping weren't going to work, went for the one thing he knew would hurt me most, my career. He called my workplace, tried to spin a story about how I was a fraud, how I was embezzling money, how I had used my company to steal their house. He thought he could ruin me, but I had seen it coming. Days before, I had already walked into my boss's office and told them everything. I had prepared every document, every email, every proof of my innocence. So when my father called, HR already knew. I found out through Lauren, my HR manager. She called me later that day, amusement in her voice. Emma, you won't believe who just tried to throw you under the bus. I exhaled, rubbing my temple. My father? Ding, ding, ding. He told us you were a criminal, that you stole their home, that we should fire you immediately or face a lawsuit. A pause, then a smirk in her voice. Nice try, sir. We already know the truth. I laughed, a short, sharp burst of disbelief. So, what did you do? Oh, I let him talk for a bit. Let him think he was being taken seriously. Then I told him that if he ever harassed an employee of this company again, our legal team would be in touch. I could imagine his face. The moment he realized his control over me was gone. They were losing everything, and it was all their fault. Their last, pathetic attempt? When everything else failed, they had one last move. They came to my doorstep. I heard the knock late at night, loud, urgent. I knew who it was before I even opened the door, but I opened it anyway, because I wanted to see them break. And there they were. My mother, her eyes swollen from crying. My father, his face red with rage. She was the first to speak. Please, Emma, her voice cracked. We're family. My father, however, had no tears, no remorse, just rage. You think you're winning? He spat. You'll never be anything without us. I tilted my head, studying him. Once upon a time, those words would have gutted me. Now, they meant nothing. I let the silence stretch, watching them shift uncomfortably under my gaze. Then I smiled, cold, final. Then I guess we'll see, won't we? And I shut the door in their faces. I heard them pound on it, yell, beg. I didn't turn back, because for the first time in my life I was free. 30 days later, they didn't pay rent. Of course they didn't. And so, on the 30th day, the eviction process was finalized. They were gone. I never checked to see where they went. I never asked. I didn't care. I sold the house 2 weeks later. The market was good. I made a profit. And with that money, I started a fund for women escaping financially abusive families, because I knew exactly what it felt like to be trapped. But I also knew something else. You don't have to stay trapped. You don't have to keep bleeding for people who would never do the same for you. You can walk away, and you can never look back. Because some bridges, they deserve to be burned, and I had no regrets. The end of one life, the beginning of another. It had been 30 days since I shut the door in their faces, 30 days since I heard their voices, their threats, their pleas. And now, they were gone. I hadn't checked. I hadn't driven past the house to see them pack their things. I didn't care. The only thing I knew for sure was that when Mark, my financial advisor, called me that morning, his voice was pleased. "It's done, Emma. They're out." A simple statement, but it carried a weight I had never felt before. It was freedom. I was free. Selling the past. I drove back to the house that evening. Not because I needed to see them gone. Not because I wanted to check if they had left anything behind. But because I wanted to say goodbye. I pulled into the driveway and stared at the house. The place where I had grown up. The place where I had begged for love. The place where I had been made to feel like nothing. And yet, now it was just a house. Just a piece of property I owned. No different than the investments I made in real estate. No different than any other building I had bought and sold. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing against the empty walls. They had taken most of their belongings. The furniture was gone, the personal touches erased. The only thing they had left behind was trash. Typical. They had lived in my house, off my money, off my kindness, and they still left behind a mess for me to clean up. I should have been angry. I should have felt something. But all I did was smile, because it didn't matter anymore. This house had been a prison for years, and now it was about to become someone else's home. A few days later, I finalized the sale. The market was good, and I made a profit, more than enough to do something meaningful, because I knew what it felt like to be trapped, and I wasn't going to let anyone else go through what I did. Turning pain into power. I didn't spend the money on myself. I didn't buy a car or a vacation or anything they would have expected me to. Instead, I did something better. I started a fund for women escaping financially abusive families. Women like me. Women who had spent their entire lives being told they owed their families everything. Women who had been treated like an ATM instead of a daughter. Women who had been manipulated, blackmailed, and broken down by the very people who were supposed to love them. I set up a program. Emergency housing, legal aid, financial education. Everything I had wished I had when I first realized my parents were using me. And for the first time, I felt like my pain meant something. It wasn't just suffering anymore. It was fuel. It was power. And it was mine. The final message months passed. I barely thought about them. I didn't wonder where they were, or what they were doing, or if they had found someone else to leech off. Until one day my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize, but I knew exactly who it was before I even opened the message. "Emma, please, we have nowhere else to go. Can we talk?" I stared at the words for a long time, for a second, just a second. I felt the old habit kick in, the urge to fix things, to be the responsible one, to be the daughter who saved them, even when they didn't deserve it. But then I remembered. I remembered my father's voice on that phone call. "She's a failure, a mistake. She was never supposed to happen." I remembered my mother making excuses for him. I remembered Liam mocking me, calling me a joke, laughing at my generosity. I remembered every insult, every time they used me, every time they twisted their love into something ugly and suffocating. And just like that, the hesitation was gone. I moved my finger over the screen. Delete. No reply. No second chance. No regret. I put my phone down and walked away. Because some bridges, they deserve to be burned, and I wasn't looking back. The new beginning. I stepped outside that morning, breathing in the crisp air, feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, there was no weight on my shoulders, no fear, no guilt, No obligations tying me down, just freedom. I wasn't the scared little girl trying to earn her parents' love anymore. I wasn't the desperate daughter trying to prove she was enough. I wasn't their pawn. I was Emma Carter. And for the first time in my life, I was finally free. Fade to black. The life I built without them. The moment I deleted that message, something inside me clicked into place. It was final. I had spent years believing I needed them, that no matter how much they hurt me, manipulated me, and used me, they were still family. But family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about love. It's about the people who stand by you, not the ones who drag you down. And they had made it very clear, walking bank account to them. So now? Then I was free, redefining my life. For the first time, I had no one to answer to. No one calling me to demand money. No one when it was just me. And I could do whatever I wanted. I poured myself into the fund I had started, worky women who had been told that they owed to women who had been gaslit, manipulated, and financially drained. Women who were trying to escape, just like I had. I sat with them, listened to their stories, and I wasn't alone. I had spent years believing I was the only one who had gone through this. That maybe, just maybe, I had been too sensitive, too selfish, too ungrateful. But I wasn't. There were so many of us, and that made me angry. Because how many daughters, how many sons, how many people had been trapped like I was, forced into lifelong servitude just because their families had decided they owed them. I had the power to change that, so I did. Success on my own terms. The fund grew faster than I ever expected. What started as a small project became a movement. Women reached out telling me that because of what I had built, they were finally able to leave their toxic families. They found their own homes. They kept their money instead of handing it over to people who never appreciated it. They broke free. And that was more fulfilling than anything I had ever done in my career. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about purpose. When they tried to crawl back. Months passed. I thought about them less and less. I didn't wonder where they had gone, what they were doing, or if they had found someone else to drain dry. They weren't my problem anymore. Until one day, an email. Not from my mother, not from my father, from Liam. I stared at his name for a long time before opening it. Subject: You win. I exhaled slowly, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I clicked. Liam, I hope you're happy. You ruined our lives. Mom and Dad are broke. We've been bouncing between cheap motels. No one will help them because they burned every bridge. I lost everything too. You really think you're better than us, don't you? And then the last line. I hope one day you realize what you've done. I sat back. I read the email twice, and then without hesitation, delete. No reply, no anger, no sadness, just peace. The power of moving on. I used to think closure came from fixing things, from making peace, from talking it out. But sometimes, closure is just moving on. It's waking up one day and realizing you don't need their validation anymore. It's not feeling anything when they try to crawl back into your life. And it's knowing, deep in your bones, that you did the right thing. I had built something for myself. I had helped people who actually needed and deserved it, and I had done it without them. So, as I sat in my apartment, looking out at the skyline, feeling lighter than I ever had before, I knew I had won. Not in the way they had thought, not with revenge, not with anger, but by living a life they had no power over, a life that was truly, finally mine, and I had no regrets. Conclusion: Destiny rewritten. Some bridges deserve to be burned. Some doors should never be opened again. For years, I let them take. I let them control. I let them define my worth. Not anymore. When they tried to guilt me, I said nothing. When they tried to ruin me, I stood taller. And for the first time in my life, I was truly free. What would you have done? Would you have given them another chance? Or would you have left them in the past where they belong? Tell me in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't just leave. Join the movement. Subscribe to Destiny Rewritten for more stories of power, revenge, and transformation. Because the past doesn't define us, what we do next does. Remember, you owe nothing to those who never valued you. Rewrite your destiny. Until next time, stay strong, stay sharp, and never let anyone tell you who you're supposed to be. This is Destiny Rewritten. And this is just the beginning.